Right. My website was affected by a Google update. What are the top things I should check to identify the problem? So obviously, there's been three Google updates in the last 4 months, which is quite unusual. And Kirsten, I think you're probably a good person to start on this because obviously you work in house, and if one of the sites that you were working on was hit by a Google update, when I say hit, it just means others have been rewarded over you. What would you do first?
They can't comment, never happened.
Yeah,
That'd be
slowly get
great.
the resignation letter in. I've got another job. Sorry. Yeah.
I just left and went to Hawaii. No, well, I would check, was it really the update or coincidence that it happened at the same time? If you're fairly certain it was the update, I would check what was impacted, because what you can get hit in several ways, right? Was it site-wide? Was it just a few pages? So I would do an investigation that goes from the broader to the more granular and really try to figure out if it was a section of my site, what is different than to other things. So unfortunately, my advice is just to really pull up your sleeves and do it bit by bit, start from broad and try if you can narrow it down, because sometimes it's really difficult to pinpoint, right? It's not, oh, this one thing is the thing that caused it. It just doesn't work like that. And also see if you've done something, that might have caused that just recently. So it's a lot of investigation and trying to narrow it down bit by bit to then maybe find the thing that would have caused it. I would also research or speak to others if they were also hit. Are there some common things? Maybe someone's already done some analysis that you can find online and see, okay, other websites were hit because of this and that reason, or at least that's what people think might have caused it. Then you can check that against your website. So it's just a very laborious process, I would say, to try to find what maybe could have been the cause and then try to fix that, try to improve, look at, again, depending on the update, but look at what are you doing that's maybe not in line with general recommendations, something that might not the greatest thing for your website visitors that could be improved. So investigation is what needs to happen.
Investigation. Yeah. I'd also say, just on that was a good way that you outlined it. You're planning how to do it. I'd also say if you were in-house, and that you definitely do the manage expectations and you put a plan together. With working with an agency or agency side, and your client has obviously found this update or seen the results, again, manage expectations and put a plan of action together, a checklist, like you've mentioned, of what things have changed and bit by bit, so you can record that. And also, if there are other websites in the same industry that have seen an update or a negative impact from that update, that can also be a little bit, I guess, reassuring in a way that you are not the only one. It could be like an industry thing that some updates some industries have been affected by certain updates. But the other thing I'd like to add is, don't panic, because everyone's been there. So, it will get better.
Sorry,
go on.
No.
I was going to say, yeah, that's a very good point. And I think whether you're in-house or you work with clients, also letting them know ahead of time, be proactive about your communication around these things. Nothing might happen at all, but at least if you've flagged, hey, there are updates currently, we're monitoring what's happening, that puts you in a much better position than just going, oh crap, what happened? Now I need to explain this somehow. I don't know what caused it. So being very, very proactive with your clients or with your stakeholders in-house. And then what Joe said, make sure you have an action plan, you communicate that action plan, and to show that you're on top of things as much as you can be.
I was just going to add, I guess, coming in from a slightly different angle, we work with quite a lot of clients that come to us because they've been hit by an algorithm change, and they think the answer to that is throwing a bucket load of authority links at it and it will fix it. So what we would typically do is cover our eyes, go to Google Search Console first and just check, peek through our eyes and check they've not had a manual action penalty, which is the the naughty step of all naughty steps. And then, we use a tool, and I'm sure there's loads of other tools out there called SEOtesting.com. And pretty much everything that maybe our web devs have tweaked over the last 6 months is logged in there. So in theory, when you start to see the drop happening, you can see what changes you'd put in place. Now, obviously, Ahrefs and Google Analytics has the ability to add those notes as well. But yeah, SEOtesting.com has saved our ass so many times where, we've just made one slight change. I think a really good example is when there was all that panic. Again, I'm straying into a territory I don't really understand, so I'll wait for Kirsten to tell me the truth. When there was all that panic about Google substituting titles for H1s in the SERPs, and everyone quickly went and rewrote all of their H1s, and it caused kind of disarray for about 3 months. I think when people then changed some of them back, they saw their results started to recover. So I think essentially what both these guys have said around not panicking is important, but also looking at what you've done and having a clear audit trail of what you've done over the last 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And just on that one that you said about the audit trail, I do think sometimes we get I heard this expression like into the weeds, with SEO, that you're doing like individual tasks, but then you don't sit back and think, okay, what have I done like the past 12 months? And it is really important when there are updates happening, and if you have been affected, particularly if you've been affected, to look at, what did you change both off page and on page that may have potentially contributed to that drop in traffic.
I think just to add as well is when it comes to something like that, so when there's a Google update and say, for instance, you see a drop in traffic, you also assume that you've done something wrong, but actually sometimes it's just that other websites being rewarded that weren't before. And so as well as looking at those websites that have been also negatively affected, trying to look at and understand the ones that have been rewarded and are now sitting in those top positions for the terms that you were sitting, and trying to work out what are they doing differently that you and say some others aren't. And the only other thing I would say is, obviously there are, like Joe said, about not panicking, but also reaching out to other people. So obviously if you've got the budget, you can work with agencies, but there's also things like this. And if you're, if you don't have the budget to work with somebody, that's the whole point in something like office hours. So whoever asks this question in future, if you want to actually share URLs and stuff, we will look at it beforehand and try and give you some more specific recommendations to your particular issue. Obviously there's no URL or anything here, but yeah, people when I've always found, if I've ever been in issues, you can reach out to people in the industry, and if they're passionate about this stuff, they often want to lend a hand, which is why John Muller used to do this in the first place. And there was a whole community of people that used to jump in and help these people. So yeah, I would look at basically who's done well, use things like this, and obviously you're probably going to realistically spend the next few months in Search Console as well, so be prepared for that. And also, like Joe said about don't panic, there aren't any quick fixes, so set those expectations. In reality, if it's a core update, it's their quality update, so it's usually that it's a bigger issue than just fixing a few H1s or something like that.